honest. How many times have you stayed in a relationship thinking, oh, if I just give a little bit more, or if I just love them harder, maybe it will work? I've been there too. And today's episode is about that exact moment when love becomes self-abandonment. And we're diving deep into a conversation with Dr. Jasmine Escalera, a reinvention guide and educator who helps women of color break inherited patterns that shape how they love, how they lead, and how they live. Together, we're talking about what it really means to choose yourself after heartbreak, how to stop shrinking in love, and how to rebuild from a place of self-trust. By the end of this episode, you'll understand that self-love isn't a bonus to love. It's the foundation of it. So welcome to another episode of From Breakup to Badass. I am Yanira, your speaker, wellness coach, and your guide through the messy, beautiful process of rebuilding your life after breakup. And if you haven't done so, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode that helps you rise stronger, calmer, and more confident than ever before. Jasmine, I'm so happy that you're here. I think many of us have confused love with survival. We learn early on to please, to fix, to shrink just to feel chosen. And I think there are many studies that show that more than 60% of women suppress their needs in relationships to avoid conflict. I mean, I know I did I think in every single relationship that I have. So Jasmine, I wanted to ask you first, when did you first realize that you were abandoning parts of yourself to be loved, even in your marriage? And welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to share this story, especially with you and with the audience. You've had the same experience that I have in terms of being married, going through a divorce, choosing to be single to heal. And so many women are really identifying, wait a second, there's a pattern here. I'm having different relationships with different men, but they all feel very familiar. They feel very similar. And so we're coming to this awakening of, hold on, there's something that I need to heal within myself, and really understanding and identifying the story around why we're doing this, and also recognizing that that story is something we saw play out in our own families and with the women who came before us. So this is just such a powerful conversation to be having, and thank you so much for allowing me to have it with you. Now, I want to definitely say that I didn't know that I was self-abandoning, because that really was what I saw previously in every single relationship that I encountered. As a child, I can remember the women in my family sitting around having coffee and talking about the different types of experiences they were having in their love relationships. And those were not healthy, productive experiences. These were experiences of pain. These were experiences of abuse. But no matter what, the women stayed. And that's a form of self-abandonment. That's a form of saying my needs, my safety, my security don't matter. This relationship is what actually matters. And in our culture, and in many cultures, we are told to stay. We are told to make it work. And no matter what, we feel as though we have to do that. I have to stay. I have to make it work, because leaving almost feels like a failure. But leaving should really ultimately be seen as the highest form of choosing ourselves and choosing love of ourselves first when we are in these kinds of unhealthy patterns or unhealthy relationships. I didn't recognize it for a very long time. In fact, I was married for 6 years. After that, I had a relationship for over 4 years. And it took me really taking a step back and being single by choice for the last over 5 years now to dive deep into who is Jasmine outside of any kind of relationship. What are her needs? What are her desires? What does she want out of this life? And once I firmly grounded myself in that identification of me as a single woman, as a Latina, what are my hopes and my dreams? I started to recognize that I became so in love with myself, so in love with my life, so in love with my journey, so in love with what I want to create for myself, that self abandonment isn't even a choice anymore. But I think that this comes with really giving ourselves the opportunity to know who we are and love that component of ourselves, love ourselves truly. And that helps with feeling as though I can't abandon myself. If I abandon myself, that means that my needs don't come first. And my needs feel good to me. They feel joyful to me. They feel self-honoring. And so really taking that time to take a step back for me was what helped me recognize the patterns in my relationships, the patterns of what I saw growing up, how they connected to the relationships that I was having. And it made me realize that I have to learn to love myself first.
Oh, that's beautiful. Like listening to you and thinking about the clients that I've guided through heartbreak, right? I think I didn't realize everything that, like all the parts, just like you mentioned, like all the parts that I abandoned about myself just to be in the relationship. So when I was married, I did so many things for the marriage, and this is how I felt. I felt like I was swimming and a tsunami was coming to me. Okay. And it was so tough, and I didn't want to let go. I wanted to be there, and I wanted to do everything in my power for the relationship to work. And I think and I'm not blaming either one of us, right? Because I think we did our best with the tools that we had. But I just didn't see it. I didn't see all the things that I didn't do for myself because I was thinking of him, of the kids, and how I lost myself in it. And I not like you, I haven't been single by choice. However, I took at least a year and a half to heal myself. And I think that's how much time it took for me to really say, okay, this is who I am. But every time that I think about it, it's just this is what I needed to do to be by myself in order to heal.
Yeah.
You have shared that this pattern, you talk a little bit, right, about it, that didn't start in adulthood. And like I think from 0 to 7, I've been listening to like different podcasts and how we are like a computer that you're downloading all the information, all the programs, the Excel, Word, PowerPoint, whatever. So we bring all the stuff that we are from 0 to 7 years old, we're like just absorbing all the information. And we start with those patterns early on.
Yeah.
And all those limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough or, whatever. But so you talk a little bit about, your family dynamics and how early, how early you saw those dynamics and how early you think they started shaping you into your romantic relationships.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to first say I do not believe or think that you can't be in a relationship to heal in the way
Mm,
that we have healed. I have been single by choice now for quite a few years, and that decision was made by me to heal lots of different areas of my
mm,
life, not just relationships and not just love. And so, for any of the amazing listeners who are in relationships and want to undergo their healing journey for their relationship and for themselves, know for sure that that is something that you can do, irregardless. You do not have to leave relationships to heal relationships. I think that the most important thing in terms of healing relationships with a partner is ensuring that you're with a partner who wants to go on the journey with you in terms of healing. One of the things that I recognized in my partnerships, and this was another thing that became a really big priority for me in finding my soulmate, my next relationship, is it's very important to want to give to a relationship and want to be with someone who also wants to give to that relationship. And that includes growing and developing and healing together. Now, when it comes to, our stories and the stories that we inherit, that's essential and important to every single aspect of our lives. What you were talking about was the 0 to 7 stage, where our brain is like a sponge. And if you think about a sponge soaks up excess water. We're soaking up the stories and the narratives that are playing out in front of us. And those stories and narratives become our beliefs, they become our actions, they become what we think is true. We inherit that. I once heard a really interesting sort of component to that, which is think of the sponge as soaking up water, but when it dries up, there could be dirt in that sponge because the water wasn't necessarily the cleanest or the healthiest or the, most clearest. And so essentially, as our brain develops, we hold in some of that, what we would call dirt. Now, is all
Mm.
that necessarily bad? The way that I like to think about inherited belief systems is that we are all very successful, amazing women as we are, right? These belief systems have gotten us this far. I had to come to a place where I realized that the inherited beliefs that I was holding had allowed me to become a strong, resilient, capable woman who accomplished a lot in her life. But I
Mhm.
had gotten to a point in my life where the next phase of where I was going required me to clear a lot of the negativity around some of those beliefs and really let some of that go and take on new belief systems that I
Mhm.
wanted to create for myself, new stories that I wanted to create for myself. And so there is almost this like honoring of the greatness that these stories have allowed us to claim, a release of what we no longer want to keep because it's not going to serve us where we're going, and a rewriting of the narratives and the stories and the beliefs in the shape of what we want next. And so I think that that's really the phase of this. It's honoring it. It's understanding it. It's letting go the components that are not serving you and almost taking ownership over what do I want this next story to look like? And how can I come from that place to create my new relationships, to create my new love story, to create the life that I truly want to be living in terms of freedom and love and joy and prosperity?
I love everything that you said, Jasmine. I think it was Christine Langley who said, "We repeat what we don't repair."
Yeah.
And in order to repair, we need to be conscious of those limiting beliefs, because sometimes when we lose ourselves in the relationship, it's because of what we saw when we were kids, all those family patterns that we keep, doing over and over again. And when we are conscious of those limiting beliefs or whatever we think, when that it's there since we were kids, or maybe because something happened to us at some point, we need to be aware in order to be able to repair, and we need to change those limiting beliefs when let's say, if I'm maybe, and I'm going to give you a very simple example that I worked on the first time I worked on my limiting beliefs. When I started doing the exercise, I saw that one of my limiting beliefs was self-love, lack of self-love. And that came because when I was 16 years old, my mom, we come from Venezuela, as being Latinas in Venezuela, and a lot of Miss Universe came from there. And I think my mom, she just wanted us to be pretty and have a great body and everything because looks were important. And I was 16 years old, and she put us in a spot, let's say, like every Tuesday and Thursday, they would give us massages and passive like gymnastic. I don't know how it's called in English, but I was 16 years old, and I was very skinny. So the belief is that I was not pretty enough and I
Mhm.
was not good as I was because she wanted me to change. And it's not like she wanted me to change. However, this is the belief that was in my mind, that I was not good enough at the way I was. So that became in the belief that I don't love myself. So I had to work on it every single day. And I think I did it for 8 months. Looking myself in the mirror after my shower and going all over, my body and say, I love me and I accept me just the way I am. And it's unbelievable, how these patterns or how these beliefs, because something happened, can be part of us. But if we're aware, that's when we get to change it. And it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, talking about the emotional part, okay? So, what tends to happen, Jasmine, emotionally when someone gives and gives in a relationship without being fully themselves? Because I think that's one of the things that happened to me. And
Yeah.
how resentment and the hyper independence show up for you?
Yeah, I love this question so much. So I can say that I can give myself as an example, and I think this will resonate a lot with the listeners. So in my relationships, I wanted to be loved. I mean, we all do, right? We all are seeking partnership. We're all seeking love. We're all seeking that attention and affection. What I really realized was that as a child, my parents were very young when they had me. And they wanted to live a lot of their life and a lot of their independence. And so there was a lot of time of me alone, a lot of time of me soothing myself. I knew that my parents loved me, but they weren't capable of showing me that love consistently. And sometimes this happens a lot with women as we grow up, especially daughters of immigrant families, where your parents are going out, they're making money, they might have multiple jobs. And so you are the one who is tending to yourself. You're even potentially the one who's taking care of younger siblings. And so your needs very often get suppressed. And when your needs get suppressed, and when you are always giving to others, over giving to others, when you finally get the chance to be loved or you're seeking love, oftentimes we're putting someone else's needs above our own because that's what we've been taught to do. And we're not really sharing what our needs are, and we're not sharing ourselves. We consider ourselves as being too much if we want to share what we need in a relationship. So, what we often can see is a suppression of self, a suppression of our needs, the suppression of our desires, and putting someone on a pedestal, putting their needs first. What that can really start to build over time is a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, and a lot of frustration. A lot of this feeling of you don't see me, but you haven't really allowed the person to see you because you're not expressing who you are. You're not expressing your wants. You're not expressing your desires. It's a feeling of making a relationship work without you being a major component of the actual relationship. And so over time, that is, of course, going to build a lot of that resentment, frustration, anger, that feeling of I'm being lost in this relationship. What I like to say is that that's your soul becoming more aware of, hey, I am not a part of this process and I want to be. And so that's an awakening. But what can often happen, and what happened to me, is that I would then go to the opposite side, where now I want to claim my independence. Now I want to be seen. Now I want to speak up. And essentially, the person on the other end of the relationship never saw this version of you. They're kind of confused as to what is happening right now. Like, how
Who
come?
is this woman?
Yeah, and it isn't even that they don't want you to be a part of, it's that you have never been. And
Wow.
you have, and you're now presenting yourself. So that can cause a lot of complications in the relationship, a lot of feeling of I haven't been seen, I want to be seen, and the other individual really not even understanding how to take all of that in, or not being the kind of person who frankly wants that kind of relationship. But we have to also think about, well, I didn't give them that kind of relationship, right? I gave them the relationship they wanted, and now I'm trying to flip the script. So the best thing here is to go into any relationship truly understanding who you are, what you desire, what you want, and really going into the relationship seeking a healthy form of love, which is reciprocal, right? Which is kind of giving and taking. So that's one component there. Now, hyperindependence is something that I also experienced in my relationship, in that I was very often told to be the strong one. So I was the eldest daughter, I was the fixer, I was the strong one, I was the one who always came in and made sure that everything was okay, not disruptive. I did really great in school, like everything had to be perfect. And essentially, what that did was it it didn't allow for my husband and for the men in my life to really be able to take their divine masculine. It was essentially like me wanting to be the woman and the man in the relationship, wanting to both have both roles and not really stepping aside to allow the amazing men in my life to be the caretakers, to be the givers, to be the supporters. And much of this was because I was used to that role, but also I didn't trust anybody else to be in that role because I was always the one who was doing that job. So all of this really goes into understanding how are you presenting yourself in relationships. And we're talking about love here, but this shows up in all different kinds of relationships, not just love. So how are you presenting yourself in these relationships? Is this giving you the outcome that you truly desire in terms of I feel safe, I feel seen, I feel loved, I feel supported? And if not, how are you carrying on these narratives? And what's the part that you're playing? You mentioned earlier kind of the blame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, I was in the blame game for sure after my divorce, but it took me a moment to step back and say, what's the part that I'm playing here? That was a huge shift for me because once I asked myself that question, then I really got to sit with myself in terms of what am I doing here to contribute to these relationships not working out?
Mm-hmm.
Because I do want to have the relationship that does work for a lifetime, but that
Mm-hmm.
means I have to be a participant in that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. I think several things that you talked about. Sometimes, maybe because of our upbringing, maybe in your case, you were the oldest, and I see it in my brother. He's like, it has to be this way, and he's very not close-minded, but he's like very square. That's how we would say it in Spanish, like very square. And it's a lot. What you guys live is a lot. But I have seen, in all these years that I've been coaching women, I have seen how sometimes, a lot of times, we're in our masculine side. And just like you said, sometimes we don't allow these men to actually bring their best because we want to do their jobs. And I think that's something that happened to me as well. I have as I see more and more single women now, I see they're so masculine. And, different exercises can help actually with that. So you can bring that feminine energy we're nurture people. So we want to nurture. That's why sometimes we lose ourselves because we want everybody else to be better or to be good before we are, right? But it's good to be also the woman. So right now I'm like, yes, I want somebody to take care of me. Like, it never, like, open the door, like, do everything. I said I'm gonna be like a dumb woman. And I'm just kidding, but just like, yeah, I don't know anything. You do everything, because for so long I have been by myself and all this masculine, like, I'm painting, I'm changing the bulbs, I'm doing everything by myself. So I don't want to do it anymore. So I can bring that side of me.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I love that. And I think this conversation about masculine and feminine is so incredibly interesting to me because I have a very similar style of story to yours where, I I was very much in what I would call masculine energy in terms of I get it done. I'm very strategic.
Mhm.
I work super hard. And that actually is coming from a great place, and that I was built by very resilient, very strong, very powerful men and women in my family. Men and women both had those kinds of very strong, powerful Latino, Latina energy. And I love that. But what we have to understand is that if you are engaging in that energy 100% of the time, what I want everybody to kind of take a step back and think about, and this is what I had to do, is there are parts of that energy that you want to stay in, right? Like this, being a woman and having masculine energy is not bad and it's not
Mhm.
wrong. But what you want to consider and think about is when I'm in that energy, is it because I fear that someone else can't provide the safety in the relationship that I'm in? Because this is essentially why we do stay in that kind of masculine energy in relationships. I saw myself really looking at my partner and saying, I don't trust you enough to keep me safe. And that was something that I had to heal. The reason why I stood in that dominant, strong energy in my relationships was because I didn't trust that the other person had me. I didn't trust that if I fell, they got me. I didn't trust their own strength or resilience. I didn't trust that they could keep me safe. But that was because in my whole life, I didn't trust that anybody was going to keep me
Mhm.
safe. Even my parents, because my parents had put me in situations as a child where I was not safe. So, what
Mhm.
we want to understand is that being a strong, powerful woman, that also is part of being divine feminine. Feminine does not mean falling back and being like, all right, everybody's got it. Feminine also means engaging all of the different
Mhm.
components of you, right? And so, what I always want people to understand is why are you doing what you're doing? If you are hyper independent and you're strong and it is messing with your relationships, is it because you don't feel like this person has got your back? Is it because you don't feel safe? And it might be because that person really isn't showing you safety,
Mhm.
might be because you're just used to not being around people who are safe. And so, thus, you're acting out that behavior in your relationships.
Mhm.
So, I think that as women, what is happening now is that we've been so much in that dominant archetype that
Mhm.
now we're all saying, like, I don't want this anymore. Like, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt
Yeah.
out. But we also have to recognize that being a divine feminine engages all of the different aspects of ourselves.
Mhm.
Because there is going to be a time when you're in a relationship and you got to have your man. You've got to be there for him.
Mhm.
The amazing part about women like us is that's the easy part. The hard part is how do I allow you to have me,
Mhm.
to have
Okay.
my back?
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it. You, Jasmine, at the beginning, you talk about you like you were in your relationship in your marriage for 6 years, but later you were in another relationship for 4 years, and you were talking about the patterns. So, what made you recognize that you were repeating the same pattern both with your ex-husband and the next relationship?
Making it all about what they wanted.
Mm.
And there was great aspects about that I can take from the relationship. With my marriage, I made it all about what my husband wanted and his career and his advancement.
Mhm.
And that took us on some great journeys where I learned a lot about myself and I was able to learn about what I wanted in my career and in what I wanted in terms of my success. With my relationship after that, I made it all about what he loved, which was travel. And that gave me great experiences and honored a component of myself that I always wanted to engage. But it was always about what their needs were, not
Mhm.
necessarily about what my needs were. But again, it was about taking ownership of, am I even expressing that? Am I even saying that? Am I even engaging in this relationship as a 50-50? Or am I coming from the place where I am desiring and seeking love, attention, and affection so much because of what I didn't see or have as a child that I am essentially releasing my needs so that I can be in this relationship and have that need, that desire being met, but at what cost?
Yeah. Thinking about what you're saying now, and when I think about myself, so you're the oldest one, I'm the youngest one. So this is how I felt. Like, I felt like my parents, they gave so much love to the other kids that they didn't have a lot of love to give me. And it wasn't like that. I think as parents, when you have four kids, the first one, I mean, my brother, and we were talking about it. I don't remember with who, but so my brother has a picture like this, like this, like this, like this. So he has a lot of picture when he was a baby. Like for us, for me, right? And I was the youngest, and they already had a girl. So this is the story that I put myself in my mind. Like they didn't have much love. And I think they just realized that at the beginning, when you have the first kid, it didn't come with instructions, right? So you have no idea to what you're doing, and you're so overprotective. With the fourth one, I mean, we're not going to break. So they let me be in that sense. So they didn't worry as much. Plus, my siblings, they kept repeating they kept repeating that I was adopted. Of course, this is what you do with the fourth child, right? So in my mind, I knew I wasn't adopted, but they told me as a kid all the time, you were adopted. So that's one. The other thing that they told me is that my parents didn't want me, in the sense that they already had three kids. They already had the girl. So they didn't want me. So I asked my mom like 10 years ago, Jasmine. So mom, like, did you want me? And she's like, no, I wasn't looking to have another baby. And I'm like, oh my God.
It's confirmed.
It is confirmed that they didn't want me. And
That's
I
so
mean,
funny.
as a 52-year-old woman, I understand. I mean,
Yeah.
four kids is a lot. One kid is a lot. But in my mind, I felt it. I felt that they didn't want me. And that caused that for me to get love, I needed to love them more. So for my dad, like my sister, she always said that, oh, he loves me more than he loves you. And I saw them in a relationship. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But what I saw when I was a kid is that my dad was more fond of my sister than me. So all the time I went to my dad's bedroom, and I would do massages for him. I do so many things to get his attention. So going forward, several years with my relationships, and I'm not talking just love relationship, I'm talking about friends and family. It's like I overgave
Yeah,
all
sure.
the time because I wanted them to love me, because I thought at the beginning of my years, they didn't love me enough. So I needed to overgive. So going forward with my love relationship, and that's what we're talking about today, is that I always have been the overgiver, and that's how I lost myself. So I got divorced 4.5 years ago or something like that. And I came back to the United States. I was living in Colombia, and I have been working on my people pleasing, my overgiving, and it's been great for one part because I'm choosing myself first.
Yeah.
But it has taken some time, to work on that.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we talked about your relationships, when you figured out those patterns. And so you keep saying that you are single by choice and you have spent over 5 years. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. Well, first off, I love that you brought up the dynamic of siblings because when I talk a lot about generational patterns, meaning what you saw from the women, from the men, from your community around you, and even what you inherited biologically. But there is also that sibling dynamic, which is a huge component of your belief system as well. And you just mentioned it, that hearing stories or hearing things or seeing how your parents treated your other siblings changed the way you really thought about relationships moving forward. And so I definitely want to say that sibling dynamics is a big component of this story and narrative as well. So thank you so much for bringing that up. In terms of myself, the decision to be single by choice, as I mentioned, was really so that I could engage in healing across the board. This wasn't necessarily just about relationships, it was about healing all aspects of myself. But what I really realized was that I was a serial monogamist. I was seeking love and I was in relationships back to back to back, very long term relationships,
Mm,
ever since I was 16 years old. And when I finally broke off that final relationship after my divorce, I think I was 30, I guess I was 38 because that would be 5+ years by
mhm,
now. So you're talking about a lot of years of being attached to someone and not ever really giving myself time to breathe and learn me. And
mhm,
so that decision was really all about, okay, I need to get to know who Jasmine is. I need to get to know who Jasmine is outside of relationships. I need to get to know who Jasmine is in terms of her values and her desires. And so that's why I made that decision. During the course of the last 5 years, there have been points where I went on dates or, I met wonderful gentlemen, but it never was the kind of relationship that I want to have moving forward. And I think that that's what this time has really provided to me is a deep understanding of who I am, but also a deep understanding of what I deserve now and what I desire now, which has completely shifted and changed. I've gotten to understand that the biggest need for me is safety. Not having felt safe very often as a child, not having that sense of safety consistently in my life. Safety is big for me. So I've realized that inconsistency in dating, inconsistency in
mhm,
relationships, not showing up, those are all signs for me of inability to have safety in a relationship. So it's essential for me to recognize what are my core needs and how can I get that in a relationship and from an individual. But it's also shown me how important it is communication, like how important that communication is with someone. No one is going to understand what I need or where my boundaries are unless I vocalize them.
mhm,
And being the eldest daughter often taught me not only that my needs are not important, but also the vocalization and the communication of those needs are not valid. So it's hard for me, and it has been hard for me in relationships, not only to be myself, but to have a conversation with someone about what that means, what my boundaries are and what it is that I'm truly seeking in partnership. And so these things, these patterns show up not just in how we're giving, but also what we're receiving and how we're communicating and how we're trusting. And so that's really important to recognize as well. And now that I am officially back in the dating scene, it's a really fun thing. I find dating to just be so incredibly fun because I see it in a different way now. It's really all about let me take in this magical human who's sitting across from me, and whether they are someone that I want to continue to date or not, take from this experience even more information and data about what I'm seeking, about who I am, about what I'm looking for. And I utilize it as the opportunity to engage, to have fun, to enjoy the presence of this individual, and to really give myself time to say, okay, what have I learned? What do I need?
mhm.
How do I really want to move forward in a healthy, productive way?
I love that. I love that because I just started dating. I had a date on January 1st, which I think it went well. Like there was not more than that, but it was a great date. And I thought, it has a good significance because it was the first day of 2026.
Mhm.
So I really enjoy that fact. So hopefully I'll get so many other dates.
Yeah.
But, you know, solo dating, because I have done that and I just love it.
Yeah.
And according to research, people who spend intentional time alone for self reflection or just being by yourself experience greater emotional stability and confidence in later relationships. So when and I guess you did it for 5 years. You would go, and I think I have seen your social media, all those like, oh, let's have a drink. Sometimes I go and, I do a lot of walks in nature because just being in nature makes me feel good. I love it. I love to be by myself. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I should tell a friend to come with me. I'm like, I know, I want to hug trees. I want to talk. Just want to smile, or
Yeah.
I want to listen to a meditation while I'm walking. So it sometimes it's hard to bring people into my life because I'm like, I love to be by myself.
Sure.
I'm working on that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
because we talked about it, it's self-love. So you now believe that self-love is the pathway to true love. What does self-love actually looks like in practice, and how does it change the way we love others without losing ourselves?
Oh, such a great question. First off, when it comes to dating yourself, I think that is a component of self-love. Self-love is truly just enjoying you and nourishing you and giving to yourself. And I think the solo dating is a component of that for me. It is a practice that truly changed how I view myself. And also, I want to mention that a lot of times I do a lot of things by myself, and it's because the experience allows me to be more present and available in that moment to me, but also to the new relationships or new people that I could potentially meet or form in the space that I'm in. I'm also a foodie, so I love to eat by myself because when I eat by myself, especially when I'm in a great restaurant, it allows me to take in the food and the
Mm-hmm.
flavors so much more. But self-love really is the ability for you to be with yourself, enjoy those moments, and also know what it is that you love and enjoy and what nourishes you best, and be giving that to yourself in a consistent way. And I believe that that is the pathway to true love because it's almost kind of like the know thyself, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know who you are, you know what you enjoy, you know what nourishes you. And then when you step into a relationship, because you already know those components of yourself, you don't give those things up because
Mm-hmm.
you know that those are the things that make you the best representation of yourself each and every day. And going into a relationship is about bringing the best representation of you into that relationship. So we don't self abandon because we've already felt how good it is to give to ourselves, to love ourselves, to be with ourselves. And so self abandonment doesn't even become a part of the
Yeah.
equation. Because if I'm going to be the best representation of myself, if I'm going to feel my best in this relationship, I know that I have to nourish me so that I can nourish you and that I can nourish us. There has to be spillover. So we hear that a lot of fill your cup first. I say, yes, fill your cup so much that then that spillover just becomes what you naturally give to others and to
Mm-hmm.
relationships. Because if your cup is just full, then when you are giving to everyone else, you're taking away from that cup. So I always like to say, nourish you to the fullest. Wake up each day and love with yourself so damn much that
Mm-hmm.
you are just ready to give. You're just ready to provide, but you're also ready to receive because you know how important it is for that cup to continue to be overflowed. So it's really about I know me. I love me. And so, therefore, abandonment of self is just
It's
not
not
even
there
a
anymore.
possibility anymore.
Hmm. I love that. And when we treat ourselves with compassion, with love, when we do things for ourselves, your brain is going to release oxytocin, which is going to calm you down. It's going to reduce the stress. It's going to make you feel better. So that kind of things, they're great. Last weekend, I went, not this weekend, but the other one, I went to a mini retreat. I wanted to do something for myself. I told a friend to come with me. She couldn't come because she was sick. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go. I did. And I was kind of sick. Like my body wanted to get sick, but I'm like, okay, part of the mini retreat is a cold plunge. So I know it's going to
Oh,
be
wow.
good for me. So we did a little bit of journaling, sound bathing, stretching, somatic dance, and then we did sauna and cold plunge, and it felt so good to do it. It was all about me, it was about feeling better. It was about connecting to myself, and it felt so good to do it. So if you have to just give our listeners or the people who are watching this, because it has been an amazing conversation, give us maybe like 3 micro habits for
Hmm.
self-love
Oh, this is so
that you
good.
can do daily. Okay.
Yeah, this is so good. What I would say is I can definitely give some of the habits that myself and some of the other women that I've worked with really enjoy, but I would start with asking yourself a question. What makes me feel the most delicious? And I think that's a great question to start with because everyone's micro habits should be adopted to what makes
Mm-hmm.
them feel the best, right? So, for example, if you're the type of woman, as you can tell, I love my nails. If you're the type of woman who loves to go to the salon and get your nails done, like that's a form of self-love.
Yeah.
And it is individual to you. So I would start with what makes me feel the most delicious? What makes me feel the most full? What makes me feel the most joyful? And
Mm-hmm.
write down those things, 3 to 5 things that you do that nourish you. Those become your micro habits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, because I am incredibly spiritual, I love meditation. Meditation
Mm-hmm.
has become a habit in my day that, I mean, I meditate and I cry because my meditation
Mm-hmm.
takes me to a place that I'm so tapped in with myself and with who I am, and I envision where I want to be. But meditation is wonderful. Journaling is wonderful. Working out, if that's
Yeah.
something that brings you joy, go for it. And working out does not have to be picking up giant weights. It can be very much of what you're talking about, movement. So
Mm-hmm.
I used to be very into CrossFit. Now, honestly, my movements are much more gentle, much more
Mm-hmm.
soft. Walking my dog is one of the best things that I do because I can be outside, I can be in
Mm-hmm.
nature, I can be with him. So it's really about asking yourself that question and then identifying what works for you. But those are some of the ones that I love, really movement. You mentioned sound baths, sound healing, breath work. Those are things that I absolutely adore
Mm-hmm.
and have
Yeah.
experienced, and it's been transformative. So
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself what you want, what usually works for you. And then you can also even ask yourself, what would I love to try just to see if it
Mm-hmm.
works for
Mm-hmm.
me? Sometimes I think we have to break out of the routine and out
Mm-hmm.
of the things we know and into something different. When we're also talking about generational patterns and generational healing, what I always like to say too is to incorporate some of the healing that our ancestors naturally used to do. So, music, right? Music was always very big. Drums were always very big for our ancestors in terms of healing. Putting
Mm-hmm.
our feet in the ground, in
I
sand,
love grounded. Mm-hmm.
soil. Grounding was always, I mean, our ancestors didn't wear shoes, so that's something that we really want to focus on and think
Mm-hmm.
about. So those are all really great things to adopt. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that I want to say is many women, because this is who we take on a lot of responsibilities and we hold a lot of titles. So there's probably women out there who are saying, I don't even have time for myself, or I don't have
Mm-hmm.
time for this. And what I would want to say is, start with where you can. So, one of the biggest practices that I've given to moms, for example, who really want to build a sense of self, a sense of self identity, and a sense of self love, but don't necessarily have the time to invest a lot in themselves, is find the moments when you are alone and use those moments. So for example, when we're brushing our teeth in the morning or in the evening, when you're looking in the mirror, say good things to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like give that a moment where you look at yourself. You were talking about this exercise actually earlier
Mm-hmm.
about building self-worth and looking at yourself in the mirror and saying great things to yourself. That is a form of self-care. That's a moment for you. When you're in the shower and you're showering,
Mm-hmm.
say kind things to you. I love my skin. My body is taking me through this day. There are the moments that you already have that you can be implementing a new way of thought, a new practice that really focuses on you and love of you, that don't require any time outside of that moment. And that's already a great place to start.
I love it. I love it. I just remember when you were talking about the mirror part, and saying affirmations and beautiful things about you. There's this video that I found like a long time ago, and I have used in some of my talks and workshops. And it's a little girl. She's in front of the mirror, and I have to send it to you. But she's like, "I love myself. I love my hair. I love McDonald's. I love this. I love that." And all her energy is like, okay, I want that. I want
Yeah,
that. So yes.
yeah, yeah. And the first time that you say these things to yourself in the mirror, what I always tell individuals is your brain cannot go from 0 to 100,
Mm-hmm.
right? The affirmations oftentimes can
Yeah.
feel illusional. Like I'm saying things to myself that I don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily feel
Believe.
or that I
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily think are true. And so that's why I always tell people create your own affirmations to start and allow them to feel good to you, right? To stretch you, but also to feel like you're on the road of belief.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a point in my business where I was saying, I'm a millionaire, I'm a multimillionaire, I'm a millionaire. There's millions of dollars in my bank account. And I would open up my bank account, and sure enough, there were not millions of dollars in there.
There
Sometimes
were a couple of hundred.
so I had to build belief systems.
Yeah.
I am good with money. Money does flow to me. Money does
Yeah.
come to me. So you have to build beliefs in stepping stones, right?
Mhm.
In
I
a
agree.
pathway that feels good to you. So when you do start doing this amazing work of giving yourself this moment, even just one moment as you're brushing your teeth or as you're looking in the mirror, make sure that you're saying affirmations that stretch you, but also feel like I can get on board with this.
Mm-hmm.
I can also find evidence in my day of where this is really true. Because the power of affirmations is they get to start to rewire your brain. But what really helps is finding those things every single day where you can say, see, it's true.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Okay. We're almost at the end of the episode. It's been amazing, amazing to have you here. You're the first people, the first women that is on the podcast, besides me, of course.
Oh, that's awesome.
So before we finish, I'm going to ask you three questions, but do you have something that you're working on that you want to share with the audience today?
Yeah, so it's so amazing to have this conversation with you, and I'm actually very emotional today because I took the last few weeks and I kind of went solo for a little bit, buried myself in something really beautiful that I was creating. I have spent years in a healing journey and years really thinking about these generational patterns and how they've been affecting me, studying it with the women that I've worked with. And I have created a relationship pattern quiz, which is a quiz that helps women to identify the four most common patterns that show up not just in love, but in all forms of relationships, like self-abandonment, like overgiving, like hyper-independence, but also the generational wound that is attached to that. And
Mm-hmm.
so this quiz takes only 3 minutes to do, and it's easy and it's so informative, and it gives you that pattern and it lets you know where that generational wound comes from. I launched it yesterday, and over 300 women have already, in 24 hours, taken
Oh,
the
wow.
quiz.
Okay.
And the amount of just comments and women in my DMs saying how informative it's been and how
Mm-hmm.
transformative, it really brought me to tears because I I want love. And I think all of our listeners here are going to say the same thing, unless they're already in a beautiful, healthy relationship. But I would imagine that most of the women listening to this want what we want. We desire love, but we want it from a healthy, healed
Mm-hmm.
space. And we want it in a way that honors the women that we are and the women that we desire to become. And that holds us in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And so this quiz is really coming from that place of my own desire to seek love as a healing woman, and really my desire to help other women who want that kind of love, who want those kinds of relationships in every single aspect of their lives. So I was so excited to launch it yesterday,
Yay!
excited to receive the amazing just affirmation of how helpful it's been. And that's something that I've been working on for quite some time. And it's all of my love and my healing poured into one space.
I love it. I love it. You who are listening or watching this, it's the quiz. It's going to be right there in the description of this episode. Okay, Jasmine, before I leave, I have 3 questions and you have to answer them in a word or a phrase or a sentence. Okay.
Okay,
So I'm
gotcha.
going to go with the first one. If you could share just one practice or mindset that truly helped you heal after your breakup, what would it be?
You get to choose yourself. You are the most important person in your life, and you get to be number one and choose you always.
Okay. Oh, I got goosebumps. Okay. Knowing what you know now, okay, with all the experience that you have had before, what would you say to yourself when you were going through your breakup?
You did the right thing by walking away. After my divorce, I felt like a failure. I felt like such
Mhm.
a failure. I felt like I didn't try enough. I felt like I didn't try hard enough. And what I know now is that quitting is sometimes the best thing for you to do. And so I would tell myself, it's okay. You did it right.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to tell myself the same thing. Yes. And I'm going to high five myself. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Last one. What does the word badass mean to you today?
Oh my gosh. Badass to me means a woman who truly knows herself, who does not give in, and who puts herself first. I think that too many of us have really put everybody else above ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think we're in a reclaiming of self, a real period where women are saying, no, I matter. And not even that, like, I
Mhm.
am the thing that matters. And I love that. So badass to me is about saying, like, I matter, I'm number one, and you can't take that title from me.
I love it. I love it. And if you're listening to this, you are a badass as well. And if this episode reminded you that you deserve to be loved without losing yourself, please share it with someone who needs that reminder too. And tag me on Instagram at Janita Puy Wellness. We also have a cheat sheet from Breakup to Badass. You can download it in the description of the episode. Jasmine, it's been amazing to have you here. Do you have like a final phrase that you want to tell all of our audience?
All of you are badasses, and all of you deserve the love you desire. And believe me, he'll find you.
Oh, okay. I'm going to cry. Well, that's what I have for you today. And I'm going to leave you with the same thing that I leave you every single episode. Remember, you've got this. Now go live like the badass that you are.